Welcome once again to the Aurum podcast this brilliantly beautiful Saturday morning. We are so glad that you could join with us today, even as we continue our discussions this month regarding communications. I'm your host. My name is Tony Kuria, and I'm so glad that you could join with us. The Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, a HR and risk advisory company. And here we discuss, the podcast is mainly discussing issues regarding the workplace and basically building winning teams. And therefore, welcome to know more about how you, as an entrepreneur, you as a manager, as a worker in the workplace, how you can be part of building a winning team. With me is a few ladies and gentlemen who I really treasure and appreciate because of their wise counsel. First and foremost, we have the managing director at Aurum Consultants, Madam Zipora Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, viewers. I'm happy to be here this morning.
Yes, thank you, Zippy. And then we have the HR specialist, Madam Martha Thuku. Welcome, Martha.
Good morning, viewers, and welcome to our podcast this morning from wherever you are watching from. We are delighted to host you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. And from last week, we are privileged to have this week a relationship coach, a relationship specialist, somebody I consider my mentor in many ways. And that is Pastor Barnabas Achoki. Welcome, Pastor Achoki.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. Good to be together with you, Zippy and Martha, and all of you who are joining us this morning. Thank you for this opportunity, and I hope you're going to have an insightful moment as we deliberate on today's issues.
Thank you, Pastor. Now, before I continue, Pastor Choki, you do have a consultancy that you run, especially
Yes.
related to relationships.
Yes.
Kindly tell us more and tell our viewers more about what you do and what that entity does and what is its name and what it does.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. The agency I run is called Two Ship Solutions, Yani Melimbili, two ships. And the whole thing behind this is that we are the ship that comes alongside your ship in the turbulent waters of relationships. Relationship matters can be very, very tricky. So both at a personal and a professional level, we come alongside to help you just sail through those turbulent waters of relationships. So that's what we are all about.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, to our viewers and our listeners, if indeed you are in turbulent waters, the mawimbi yamechapa, there are turbulence and gales that are hitting your ship, and it looks like it will capsize, like the famous ship, what was his name, Titanic. You have your beautiful Titanic in the oceans, whether professionally or personally, and the gales and other forces are about to capsize it. Kindly call a siren call to Two Ship Solutions, and they will come alongside you and help you steady the waters, despite the turbulent seas. So, and if you want to know more about Two Ship Solution, kindly you can get in touch with us. We will give you more details at the end of our podcast. So today we want to continue with the conversation we had last week. It was last week we had a very engaging conversation regarding communication in the workplace, and we were looking at the aspect of high pressure, high tension environments that some of us find ourselves working in. And sometimes in those kind of situations, communication can be a bit difficult. You know, people can end up shouting and showing the worst of themselves. And we discussed a bit on how to handle the same and no matter the pressure, doing things in an orderly manner in order to even improve how we communicate and eventually our productivity. So today we want to talk how to improve communication in the workplace generally, whether high tension, whether idling, whether whatever it could be. And we want to discuss more about the same because communication at its best is the key that unlocks the door to success. And at its worst, it can send a business spiraling into decline. And as we all know, the ability to communicate effectively is essential in today's workplace. And many businesses, even very established businesses, sometimes struggle to get it right. So let us begin from a very simple place. I will ask, this one I'll direct to Madam Zip to get us rolling. What are, just from a HR perspective, what are the communication barriers that occur in the workplace?
Thank you, Anthony. And I was listening to Mr. Choki talking about the two-ship solutions. And you know what I'm actually realizing is there cannot be communication without a relationship. For a communication to happen means it's a relationship, and here we are talking about the work relationship. But I also realize sometimes the work relationships and how we communicate and relate with each other also comes from home, external factors, how we are relating with other people. And sometimes we carry that to the workplace. And when I'm thinking about the barriers of communication, I'm thinking about sometimes how we have different perception, different opinions of something. And it's so funny because sometimes you can disagree so badly on something, yet you're saying exactly the same thing using so many different words. It's like looking at number 9 and number 6, and depending on where you're seated, you actually see it differently, but you're saying the same thing. So I think sometimes that difference of perception can lead to challenges in communication. And I think it's something we need to be aware of. And one of the things I am learning, because we're always learning, is to be self aware. Or sometimes the things that, you might be doing or you might be saying, but you are not necessarily accurate. Or maybe it's blind spot that you have. So I think perception is something that can seriously cause a barrier in communication. The other thing, sometimes you can be talking to someone and they don't have interest, or they're not listening to that conversation, or they are busy. Nowadays I'm seeing social media, the phone, the gadgets becoming such a big barrier to communication. Sometimes you go to a meeting room and people are actually busy on their phones, and you could be there and you're talking and you're actually talking to yourself because people are busy doing other things. And again, setting those boundaries and making sure when you're having a conversation with someone, there are no distractions. I'm not so sure from the relationship coach you will help us understand how do we manage these situations, because the phone has become, like, I don't know, it's an addiction. It's a bad thing actually. Sometimes you go for a very serious meeting and people get distracted. You see someone actually walking out of a meeting to go and pick a phone, yet that call could have waited. So that becomes a serious barrier of communication, because number one, it actually distracts the person talking. Or number two, you walk out and you miss out on a very important point that could lead into serious challenges. Something I think could also be a barrier of communication is cultural backgrounds or cultural barriers, where you find, probably depending on where we come from. And in Kenya, we have, different backgrounds from different ethnic groups, and depending on how we've been brought up. And I know we are trying to be, one nation, one country, but we cannot wish away the way we have grown up, the way we've been cultured, the way we see things. And you might find situations, for example, where you find, a woman who is a leader says something, and the people under them, they don't actually take that seriously because they don't give respect to women. So again, just looking at cultural barriers, I think that's another big challenge that could become a barrier to communication at the workplace. And I think it's important for us to be aware of those perceptions, of those nuances we have, of those cultural barriers we have that can bring that miscommunication at the workplace, and know how do we handle it. I think the other thing I'll mention before I allow my colleagues to talk about this is expectations. And I think I face this all the time, whether it's my team, whether it's people I'm dealing with every day, where you find I have a perception about something, I have an expectation about something, and the other person also has an expectation. And when those expectations are not clearly stated, then you find, you know, I make an assumption, or someone will come and tell you, I assumed this, and this, and you're wondering, how did you make such an assumption? You know, and it's because we have expectations that are not very clearly stated. And what happens? It brings that feeling of, probably this person is either not doing what I'm expecting them to do, or they're refusing to do, or or they're behaving the way they're behaving because of I don't know what. But just that not stating clearly what is expected would lead to me making that assumption and having an expectation that is actually unrealistic, because I did not state clearly what I'm expecting from you. On the other hand, you did not also, clearly state what you're expecting. Sometimes from the employee side, when I look at it, they have expectations sometimes, and sorry to say this for employees who might be listening to me, sometimes it could be expectations that are very unrealistic. So it's also important for us to think about the expectations I have. Are these expectations that can be met? Are these expectations that have some sort of a basis that someone else listening to me will, I will be making sense? Because sometimes when you listen to those expectations, you're wondering, okay, really, how did you even get to this place of thinking about something like this? So just getting to that space of understanding each other, I think, is very critical at the workplace, and to avoid, many challenges that would come with miscommunication.
Oh, thank you, Zippy. When you said about expectations and what some employees are expected to know and not to know, I remember a comment Martha made a few weeks ago when she was working with one of our bosses, and the boss would tell her, "Who told you to think?" So, so you may be that could also be a communication barrier, where where employee decided to take he or she did not listen carefully, and they tell you, "I decided to do this because I thought this is what is right." So the boss might respond, "Who told you to think?" That is also another barrier of communication in the workplace. Now, here to our viewers and listeners, kindly send in your questions. You may be one of those who wonders why employees are thinking when they have not been given permission to think. Or you could be one who wonders why are they not thinking when you have given them permission to think. So whichever is your perception, kindly get in touch with us. If these are issues, what Zippy has just raised and what you will hear from here, or opinions that you may have as we continue, kindly shoot in your questions and your comments. We would be glad to bring them online as we continue. So, Mr. Choki, from your position as a relationship coach,
Yes.
the communication barriers in the workplace. I'm sure as you coach executives and people in the business, what are some of the things that have popped up in your practice as you guide people, regarding relationships, especially from a professional perspective? What are the barriers that you have encountered that can be easily surmounted?
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And I think Zippy has covered a lot. I like just how she has brought it up. Yes, expectations is a huge thing. And sometimes, Zippy, we are not even aware of our own expectations. Sometimes they are unconscious within us. That's why that self-awareness is very, very important. And how do you know you have an expectation in an area? Is when you find yourself saying you should have, or the other person should have. So that is an indicator that you had a particular expectation in that particular area. I think in the other thing will be time. For effective communication, we need time. Time is of essence. And sometimes we want to have certain communications under pressure. We are rushing. We want to quickly be done with this and do the next thing. And so we don't give it ample time to allow for good communication to take place. So time is of essence. I think the other thing is poor listening skills. Sometimes we are not patient enough and don't listen. Listening is a discipline. So not listening well can be a barrier. But another thing that is can be a serious barrier is is context. So often we focus on the content. The other day that he was working in a place, and so he will tell his employees, please go and do this thing now. Or the employee will tell him as the boss, I will do it now. And so he goes. And so after some time, he asks, how come the thing has not been done? So this guy was working in Nigeria. So his Nigerian counterpart will ask him, did the employee say he will do it now, or he'll do it now? So it will be, or is it when it will be possible? So again, context plays a big role. Context plays a big role. So you have to know what context. In South Africa, they tell you must come to me. Now in Kenya, when you say you must come, that's you're compelling somebody to do something. In South Africa, is a kind way of saying please come to my house, or you please come. So again, context here is very, very key. The other thing is fear. So often, especially talking from a superior to an inferior, a boss to a supervisor to an employee. Sometimes, so we have created so much fear that, subordinate, sorry, thank you. We have created so much fear that when the subordinate comes, they don't express themselves fully because we have created this aura of fear. Our presence, just our, we always terrorize people. So fear can be something that can make us not get the feedback that we needed to get ourselves. So people fear and they tell us what they want us to hear instead of what we really need to hear from them. And so that sometimes can be very frustrating because we think they are with us, but they're really not with us because they fear to tell us the truth. They even fear to give us feedback or to tell us what is possible and what is not possible. And so fear can be a great barrier to communication.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Choki. Those are very interesting points, especially I like the part you've said about good listening skills and context. Now, depending on culture, the way also Zippy had brought it earlier, context of depending on your cultural background, something can be said, and somebody else thinks, okay, that sounds okay. Somebody else thinks that is rude. How can you talk to me like that? And therefore, it becomes a barrier of sorts. It becomes a problem that can come in. Martha, you are widely experienced in the world of HR, and I'm sure you have seen enough issues regarding communication in the workplace. Which are some of the barriers from your perspective do you think tend to pop up every now and then, whichever the workplace that you could be in?
Thanks, Anthony. When I was listening to ZP talk about language differences, I remembered an instance. I was driving, I was with a friend, and I asked her to check for me. So I was to turn somewhere, and I asked her to give me guidance on where I'm turning. And so she is from one of the tribes who have issues with R and L. So she wanted me to turn left. And then she said, turn. When she started with an R, I started turning right. And I was just about to be hit. And then she said, no, I was saying you go left. And I thought, what? and there was some bit of miscommunication that could have really caused a bad accident. It's just that the oncoming car from the right saw me early enough and were able to speed brake. Their car actually screeched and were not happy with me, and I could not tell them that I was being directed. Anyway, so I just had a few because my colleagues have hit the nail on the head. And one of the one I would want to emphasize on is clarity in communication as far as office or workplace is concerned. This clarity stems from your policies, your strategy. People have to be clear on what you are about and why you are doing what you're doing. And there needs to be some policies that clarify the way you do things. You have to clarify your mission and vision so that people don't start running with their own thing because they didn't understand from the word go what this organization is about. The other thing, and Zippy can testify, this is why we have what we call when new staff come in, we have that orientation to make people understand what we are about. So that is very necessary. So you must communicate what you are about, and you must be very clear in that orientation, so that people don't come with their whatever they came from and start practicing their own thing, and they are not running your vision. One of the other things that I have learned, besides clarity, is inconsistency in communication. Now, I don't know whether you guys have been victims like me. I'm the kind of a person, if you're my boss, I listen to you. So I listen to you. And you know what? When I'm talking about listening, it's not listening with ears. It's listening like so that when I'm supporting you, I'm understanding what you want to do. So if you tell me A, B, C, D, this is what I want to do, I'm the kind of a person who can rally with you 1000% on your mission, on your vision, based on what you have told me. And if you give me like how the approach you would want me to handle this, I can tell you I'll deliver. But now I have if you are the executive of the organization, like Zippy, who is the MD, and Zippy goes to maybe one of the directors, like Tony, and they're discussing what they need done. And then when Zippy goes to another person, she speaks something different. Especially, it is so bad if that person she's speaking to is being supervised by Tony. So you see that Tony will not be able to communicate to that person of their deliverables because the boss has said, you know, the person who is reporting to Tony will run with what the boss has said, will not run with what Tony has said. And so that inconsistency brings conflicts. It makes people look like they are rebelling. And then you, as the lead, who is Tony, you are the lead of the team, you are left not knowing what to do. Because then this person who is kind of having a direct line to the boss, they feel very powerful that even me, the boss, you know, like I think there's somewhere in the Bible where some guys told Moses, you think it's only you God talks to you, to even us. We have a direct line with God, yeah? You see how that brings rebellion just because of inconsistency in communicating. This other person thinks that they also can hear from Zippy. So they don't have to do what Tony is saying. And Zippy told Tony something different, and then goes and tells that other person something different, and then goes and tells even another person something different. That is a very weak manager. And the organization cannot thrive in such kind of an environment. Is a very bad culture, and managers, especially the executives, you need to watch. Because everything you say, people take you seriously.
Yes, that's true.
And you can bring disharmony, you can bring insubordination.
Yes.
Because now the people who report to Tony will look like they're insubordinating him because they are not doing what they are expected to do. So the other part of communication that really is important is respect to the people you're communicating to. That you have given me a job does not mean that you speak over me, or what is the word? I don't know which word to use.
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to approach people like we are human beings, because we are. We are created by God. We have this one life to live,
Yes.
including you as the boss. When your time comes, that organization will not be buried with you. And so what you can build and what will be eternal is the people you have built by encouraging them and coaching them, instead of bashing them and talking on them in the form of, or with your excuse that that was communication. That was not communication. So respect at every level, even if it's the assistant. In my organization, we used to call them hospitality team.
Mm.
The ones who give you tea. The way you communicate to them, the way you relate to them, please don't let them feel that they are their position. you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and that's why you look even for, instead of calling them tea girls or tea boys, it's good to use a word like hospitality. This is the hospitality officer. That means you are showing the approach of your communication in your organization. You do not
Mm.
have discrimination. So
Mm.
for me, those are the few I wanted to add, because then my colleagues were really articulate in the things they came up with. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Martha, those are very good positions that you brought in. Wow, those are very interesting issues regarding inconsistency in communication, clarity, and respect in the workplace. Indeed, respect can be a big, big deal when it comes to barriers that operate in the workplace. Even the issue of language, somebody is telling you reft, and you are so when they started you had you must be a very serious driver. You're already turning right when you had the and they were saying left. That tells you language is also a very big it's also a very big barrier, can be a big barrier to communication. If you've dealt with people with strong regional accents, you know, you may struggle. What is this person saying? And some people even can get offended depending on the R and the L and the H. Some people from Lower Eastern, the H can be put in the wrong place. So these are things that do happen, and uh, and there can be barriers to communicate. But the points that have been brought in here, if you're listening to us, I'm sure, like me, you must be taking notes. I have like 10 very powerful points that I've received from our panelists, from Achoki, from Martha, and from Zippy. Now,
Anthony, just before you move to your next point, just to
yes,
stress out on what Martha has said, and
mm,
from the place where I sit, because a lot of times I think communication barriers are caused from the top, actually. A lot
yes,
of times it's not actually even down here. Yes, sometimes down here it can happen, but a lot of times challenges come from the top. And it's what Mother was talking about, where, we are giving conflicting information. Mother is reporting to me, and I expect Mother to communicate a certain message to her team members. But instead of allowing Mother to do that, I actually, jump that channel and go communicate directly, and I give information that would end up conflicting. And what I have noticed from experience, actually, this causes a lot of confusion. The team
mm,
ends up being very confused. I've seen situations where an employee has actually gotten in trouble because someone higher in authority gave instructions, and the employee probably was completely confused on what to do, and they end up being in a lot of trouble. So I
mm,
think from a leadership perspective, we need to be aware, and it's what Mr. Choki talked about. I think he called it, is it the unconscious expectations. When we have those unconscious expectations, they end up leading or bringing a lot of confusion in the organization. There's also something else I've seen. sometimes you're communicating to someone and their frame of mind, they're not in a place where they're able to actually receive the communication you're giving. And especially if it's a difficult conversation you're having, and you find either they are anxious or they are upset, or they're fatigued, and you're trying to communicate some message. Sometimes actually that can be a barrier, because you can either end up being misunderstood, or you can either end up reading this person is not listening or they're not respecting me. So again, I think it's something we need to be aware that it can be a barrier to communication. The other thing, and this I have experienced personally, is familiarity, where you find probably your team members have become too familiar with you and they expect some treatment. The way you treat them, the way you talk to them, there's some expectation. And when you come and you communicate a message that they don't perceive to be friendly, they don't perceive to be, this is not what I expected from you, because of that familiarity, then it brings other challenges into it. So again, we just need to be aware, those things that happen because we are leaders and we let things fall off the cracks, and it becomes a challenge. When you are a leader, yes, you need to be in that place. People can come talk to you. People can be able to refer and ask to you. But you cannot be too familiar that you lose your respect as a leader. And even for the employee, they also need to know, what are the boundaries I need to relate with my leader respectfully, in a way that I can talk to them, in a way that I can be able to hear feedback, and that feedback becomes important, or becomes useful for the organization.
Wow, wow, those are
And
very good.
I think Zippy, you're talking about respecting lines of management, because so you can have staff who are very familiar with the top, and these people are reporting to you.
Yes.
So you find it's very challenging even to have difficult discussions with them, because they run crying to your boss, in quotes, that, oh, our manager, she doesn't know how to manage us, you get. So as an executive, Tony, you
Yes,
need to, even if I have a relationship with you as a friend,
yes,
you still need to define that relationship.
yes.
If I came and reported someone like my manager to you, or
Yes.
I complained, it's important, first of all, you refer me back to my manager. Because the issue will be, what exactly had your manager told you to do? Have you done it? So first go do it, and then we discuss this issue. But if you act before getting what the manager had asked this person to do, it will never be done.
Yes.
And then now that neutralizes the management powers the manager has over the staff, and then you are expecting the manager to deliver. So you have performance goals for the manager, yet you are what is it intersecting their management, because then you have a rapport with the staff they report to. That communication channel, the communications channel there should be the reporting line channels. The reporting line needs to be very clear. And that's why every organization needs it's called an organogram.
Yes.
So one of the things that you communicate to staff is the reporting lines, so that I get to know, who do I report to? And then you make sure that is adhered to. Whether you have an open door policy as an executive or not, make sure that you empower the reporting lines the way they are, and you make sure it's being followed. That way you'll have a very sane organization, and people will not go doing their bit everywhere. The other one CP was trying to allude, and I picked and I remembered, is that communicating. You can talk to someone, but they already have a set mindset. So even if you say something, then they are still in the mindset they have. So it is so important to be open-minded when you are communicating, especially if the conversation is difficult. if I come to you, Tony, and maybe you are angry with me, and you're angry with me because of something that you were told, if you're not open-minded to hear my side of the story, your mind will be so fixed. So me and you can't communicate, because every time I say my side, you have what you have been told, or what you look at me and maybe you don't like my hair. And that dictates how you're going to listen to me and the input I'm giving. And maybe I could be contributing to the organization in a better way, irrespective of my hair or my nails. So the body physical should not come into play. And also what you have heard from other people, you should now connect the dots based on what this person is saying. And thirdly, you should have an open mind every time you're having especially difficult communications. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Martha. You and Zippy have added some very important nuggets about communication barriers. In fact, the nuggets that you've brought in have answered part of the second question that I wanted to bring in on how not to communicate in the workplace. Mr. Choki, from your perspective, I'm sure you have come across areas where
Yes.
we're thinking, no, you cannot communicate like that. Kindly give us a few hints. What, from your perspective
Yes.
as a relationship expert, about how not to communicate in the workplace?
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Sorry, my internet has been bad. That's why I'm now outside. And I think it's much clearer. I'm using my bundles. How not to communicate. One of the things is please don't attack the person. You see, sometimes some people are very good at attacking. Let's address the issue without necessarily attacking the person. You are always, when you start using you and coming very strongly, then the other person shuts down, and that communication already is cut. The other person already puts up a wall. And you remember, in communication, we're trying to put a bridge where we can connect with one another. So the moment you start attacking the other person and they feel attacked, then they put up a wall. And whatever else you say after that, however important, however good it is, they were not going to be able to receive or listen to that. So it's don't shout. I know sometimes we talked about communicating under pressure last week. So even under pressure, you don't have to yell, you don't have to shout. You can be firm yet still communicate what you need to communicate without necessarily shouting. Don't talk down at the other person. And this can be gender-wise. This can be based on your position in the organization. Try to, I think Martha reminded us, we are humans, and everybody is a human being. They need to be treated with the dignity. They need to be treated with such respect. So as you communicate, we communicate in a respectful way, not in a disrespectful way, where you're talking down at people, you're shouting and yelling at them, not being able to get what you want to get. I think also, you see, we talked about communication being also part of your body language. How do you come across? Is it negative? You need to be very careful of the negative things that you sometimes do in terms of your tone, in terms of your body language. So try to cut down on the negativity. Try, even as you're giving feedback, always begin from the positive before you address whatever issues need to be addressed. So in how not to communicate, that's sometimes, don't communicate when you yourself under pressure. That's not the best time to communicate. Allow yourself to relax, because when you're under pressure, just at the spur of the moment, you may say something that may really make the situation worse or hurt the other person. So sometimes know when to communicate. It's not all the time that is a good time to communicate. But also to communicate with the other person, you have to know that, is it a good time for them? Is this a good time? So look for a time when you can, especially when you're wanting to have those difficult conversations. What is the best time that we can have it when we're both relaxed and thus can be able to, delve into those depths and have that very difficult communication.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Choki, for those quick nuggets that you have sent us. Send to our viewers and listeners. Those are deep nuggets from a relationship coach. Issues regarding attacking the other person. Don't talk down. Martha also hinted to that. Mind your body language. You could talk to me and then I'm looking away. You do this, then this and this. Or I'm looking at, I'm dealing with a drawer here and I'm saying, you Zippy, you have been very disappointing to me. And you're looking down. Your body language is like, you know, you have to face to face and do things like that. Now, very quickly, Zippy and Martha, our time is really gone. Just give us a few more extra points. Let me start with Zippy. How give a few extra points? How not to communicate to employees? We've been told a few things there. From your perspective, Zippy, what can you add on how not to communicate to others?
I think on my end, what I would mention is sometimes when you're communicating, it could be probably you're addressing an issue. And it's important not to focus too much on someone's weakness. It's good to point out probably the area of challenge, but let that not be the focus because no one feels nice when their weaknesses are being addressed. But I think the language, the tone of voice you use when you're addressing such a situation will be very, very critical. So I would say, yes, communicate, but don't focus too much on my weaknesses, but probably on how I can improve and how I can be better. I need to be affirmed as well so that I know, I'm not too badly off because sometimes the way that is communicated can put me off completely in a way that I will not come back or I will not be able to pick up the pieces and move on. The other thing and communication is not just about the use of words. We've seen is also the way we behave, sometimes the way we do things, we are communicating. And especially at the workplace. Sometimes I've seen, and this again, and I think bosses, we have a big problem. When we get too involved, and let's assume it's an assignment you've given your team members and you're expecting them to deliver, and you get too involved and you don't allow them space to execute. Now,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you should not get involved, but you should define how do you get involved. Maybe you need to get involved in a way of you need to guide the team, you need to clearly state the expectations and demand for the results, and now ask for whatever reports you need. But when you get too involved, it almost becomes like you micromanage the team. And what does that mean? You are communicating a message to the team: I cannot trust you to carry out the assignment without my involvement. So what happens the next time when you give them an assignment, they step back and wait for you to get too involved for something to happen. So we also need to be aware of our own behaviors that would create a situation, of communicating the wrong message. And that is not a way to communicate. Again, don't be too hands off, don't be too laid off that you don't get to know what's going on. So you need to figure out where the balance is when you're dealing with employees so that, again, the message you're sending out in terms of the way you behave, what you say, and how you say it is very clear for your team members.
Hmm. Wow, that's very clear and concise. Martha, in a nutshell, how not to communicate. I know you had hinted a few things here and there. You had talked about respect, lack of respect. Is there any other nugget that you could probably give us as we conclude?
So I will just add something on what Zippy has said, and I will give this idea of let me say communication at workplace, especially where there is room for open door policy.
Hmm.
So as have you ever gone to your office and you find someone is so mad with you and you don't know what you did?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the body language is telling you today is winter. So there's this my workmate who came to talk to me about some communication they had with their boss. So someone had told something to their boss, and the boss was so mad, and the boss called them to the office, and the boss was so mad they had taken it personally. So the boss started lamenting how people are saying, the boss had taken it so personally, Paka. they were choking because of anger. And then this person is not sure what this beef is about.
Mm.
And so when they came to my office, they came to tell me, this is what I have done. My boss is very mad. They're so mad with me, they are talking to me and they are choking. So me, this is what I have done. I have told them because A, I don't understand where you're coming from, and B, I don't want you to choke. Please, let's have this discussion at a later date.
Mm.
So I know my boss will come to me, to you, to tell you that I have left a meeting. I want to tell you it was not a meeting. Because even me, I was interested in to hear what these stories that they have heard about me, but they are so mad with me, and I don't know why they are mad. So,
Mm.
was there communication between that staff and the boss? The boss was
Absolutely.
talking because of anger of some information they had heard about their staff, and where is the room for that staff to grow now? Because
Mm.
if you'll be going to get information from other people, and then you come and communicate to the staff with anger. So
Mm.
it's a thin line to have open door policy
Mm.
in a workplace. Please know how to manage that open door policy. Know how
Mm.
to communicate what you hear. Know what
Mm.
to sieve. And at
Mhm.
times it takes your management skills to first of all keep quiet over that issue and
Mm.
watch for yourself because this person is reporting to you.
Mm.
Instead of coming and Pastor Choki called it talk down at that person,
Mm.
make them feel small. That is
Mhm.
lack of respect. This
Mm.
person is supposed to deliver for you. So that's all. That's the nugget I needed to add on what Zippy had said. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow. Today, if you're like me, you must have taken notes. You must have taken notes. I can see there were comments coming online. Maria Juma says she was watching from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you, Maria. Indeed, this has been very, very interesting, very deep about issues of the communication barriers in the workplace and how not to communicate. I had a third point, but our time is really gone. I don't know whether we have the time to be able to distill it. But anyway, if you're like me and you've been listening and you're thinking, wow, these things that I've had here are very deep, I would like to know more about them. Or probably you are running a business and you're thinking, some of the points that have been brought up here by Mr. Choki, by Zippy, by Martha are things that we are suffering in the office. We are fighting simply because we are miscommunicating, we are not communicating poorly, there are issues regarding respect, lines of communication, and you'd like to know more about how to handle this, you can get in touch with us. Our contacts are at the bottom of the screen. You can reach out to us through our website, www.aurumconsultants.co.ke, also through Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And you can even follow us if you. This podcast is live on Facebook, so if you have questions, you have comments after the live session, and you post them, we would be glad to assist you with them. We'll be able to answer them. We'll be able to even bring them, highlight them next week, and discuss the same. So, having said that, I would really want to appreciate you, Martha, and Barnabas Achoki. Thank you for the for taking your time to join with us today. Indeed, we've been really, really blessed. We have had some very deep nuggets. You know, one of the things as I come to a close that I want just to bring in just a comment. Martha mentioned it earlier. You know, sometimes the Holy Book, the Bible, has some very powerful business nuggets. When Martha talked about somebody who has a direct connection to the boss and they bypass the mid-level management, she mentioned something about that, and she used the story of Moses in the Bible and some of the guys who thought they could communicate directly with God. Look at the way God handled it. The CEO of the whole enterprise, he, he called Moses and the fellows who were claiming that they have a special relationship beyond Moses. And he told them with, very clearly who his mid-level manager Moses was. He told them With Moses, I talk directly. With you, others, I do other things, dreams and visions. But this guy, I talk with him directly. Yeah? And now, and God gave his judgment on these fellows who were opposing his, his appointed authority. So Martha, when you brought up that out, and you brought the issue of seniority, with somebody thinking they have a position with the CEO. I thought to bring that out. The fact that the Holy Book teaches us a nugget about management. It's Miles Munro who says the Bible is basically a book on management. It's just that we always think about it in different ways, and therefore well, I want to appreciate you, Martha. I want to appreciate you, Choki, as I said earlier, Zippy also. And I also said that if you have needs out there, communication gaps that you'd like us to fill in at Aurum Consultants, we are available. We can train you on communication. We do give trainings on communication. If you want to know more about two ship solution that Pastor Achoki is leading, kindly also get in touch with us. We would be glad to connect you with him. Having said that, we've come to the end of our podcast. Indeed, we appreciate it that you could join with us on a Saturday morning, and we look forward next week on I think it will be on the 22nd. Next week, we will be discussing more regarding communication and its effectiveness in the workplace. So, having said that, thank you very much for joining us. Take care, enjoy a nice weekend, and God bless you.